Le iPhone 6 c'est très bien, vous savez. Ça fait des grands trucs.
Je ne vais pas tourner.
This is a cartoon by the famous French cartoonist called Plantu, and this is a reinterpretation of the famous painting by Delacroix called Freedom Leading the People. And the original painting is a very bloody, violent one. And this one has been reinterpreted in a very peaceful way because all the weapons in the original painting have been replaced by pencils. And on the right corner, upper right corner of the painting, you will see the dove of peace. And this is a symbol of our peaceful, united, secular republic. Everybody's here together for peace. We want to live together again in peace. And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you, Charlie. Merci, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Charlie!
Charlie.
Charlie!
If you know who Kurt Tucholsky is, I wrote my master's thesis. He's a German. He was born in Berlin in 1890. He was Jewish, but not really practicing. And he had to leave Germany because his books were being burned by the Nazis. Where did he go? He went to Paris. And ultimately he went to Sweden, and then unfortunately, in 1935, committed suicide. But again, France was a place that welcomed Jews and welcomed people who could use humor. He was a satirist, and he wrote for the Weltbühne and was a very strong critic of the right wing. And here he was, a satirist. And in fact, I first discovered him in a small bookstore in Monterey, California. It was the Defense Language Institute's home base there, and the book was called German Humor. And it was rather small, but the Germans aren't necessarily known for their humor. But Kurt Tucholsky, his wit, his humor, perfect. Well, I had it bilingual. I was a German linguist in the Army. After learning German for 8 months, was stationed in West Berlin and was there for about 2.5 years until my one-man demonstration at the Brandenburg Gate for an East Berlin dissident named Nico Hubner. And even though I knew the Army regulations said that you could not participate in a demonstration, I was there by myself. That is not participating. So within 72 hours, I was kicked out of the city and ended up in Fort Hood, Texas. And interestingly, I still have with me my dog tags from the Army, because when you talk about freedom and sacrifice, you see here, if I could get it right, my religion was Prometheism. He stole fire from Zeus and gave it to man. And of course, we know Zeus wasn't too happy with that. So I went to the Army office that issued dog tags, and I said, I'd like dog tags with Prometheism as my religion. The sergeant said, that's not a religion. I said, excuse me, Sergeant, this regulation says whatever the soldier believes goes on here. And I still have it to this day.
And then, so what was your career after that? What did you do for the...
Basically, I worked for the Internal Revenue Service, and I worked for the International Office. Basically, I worked in the Paris Embassy as a counselor and worked in London, essentially for U.S. citizens and non-U.S. citizens who owed delinquent U.S. taxes or hadn't filed returns. So I was quite fortunate that Uncle Sam was allowing me to travel in some of the greatest spots, from London and Oslo, and I met my wife, who also worked with the International Office.
Now, I get the feeling that a lot of these people you met in the course of your work really didn't want to see you.
See, that's a misconception, because basically the benefit of having a human being as opposed to a computer that issues these letters and when you write back, it's sort of like talking to a wall. I would say 90% of them actually did. They came into the embassy and were happy to get the problem resolved. It wasn't confrontational, and other than first getting over a letter from the IRS in Washington, D.C. saying I'd like to meet you in the Paris embassy, for the most part, people were great. I'm still actually with the IRS. I've got 28 years with the IRS, 4 years with the Army, and I'm looking forward to retiring when one of my horses wins the Kentucky Derby or the lottery, whichever comes first.
So you own a horse.
3 horses.
They'll let you hold this sign, the IRS. What do they say about them being part of demonstrations like that?
Well, as I did with the Army, I researched the regulations, and basically if you do a Google search for demonstration permission in Washington, D.C., you'll see that if you demonstrate outside a federal building, they normally recommend that you give notification to the Metropolitan Police Department. So I sent them an email yesterday, and I was given great support, and I actually demonstrated, I stood with a sign outside of the Internal Revenue Service at 11:11 just to exercise my First Amendment, because people pay their taxes supposedly for the cost of our civilization. Freedom of speech is civilization.
What does your banner signify?
Freemasons.
And what are they?
What are Freemasons? Most of the people killed at the shooting were Freemasons.
How do you know that?
Because we know each other.
You knew them personally?
No, we know they were Freemasons, most of them.
Which ones?
I can't tell you that.
Because it's a secret?
No, it's because I don't know which individuals.
I see. So what is a Freemason?
It's a group of people trying to make a better world.
I see. And were they involved in the French Revolution?
Probably more likely at the end of it, and the American Revolution also.
They were involved in America.
And are they still involved in the government today?
A few of them are, yes.
So who were like famous Freemasons that people would know?
Lafayette.
Lafayette. Truman was a Mason.
So what does it mean to be a Mason today?
It means to try to analyze the problems that we have in society and find solutions all together, taking consideration the advice of different people.
How much leverage do the Freemasons have in influencing things?
Well, the analysis is brought up to the people who govern countries, especially in France, and we deliver a white book with all the information that we have gathered, so that it's a consequence of an analysis made by so many people. And then the politics can read it and get an idea of what everybody thinks.
And that happens in the United States as well?
As well.
And so if one wanted to look at the White Book, is it publicly available?
There are definitely some books that are, I'm looking for the French word, some compilation of opinions that are available, definitely.
So where could you find it on the internet?
Some of those probably could be found on the internet, yes.
So the advice you give to government leaders, is that easy to find?
I believe so, because it's not secret. It's just, comments and analyses that are made by people who are different. So that's what makes the difference.
Is that something you work on, making this advice?
Everybody that is a Mason works on that, trying to make everybody understand that with our difference we can still work together.
So what's the best advice you would give to me right now?
Tolerance, respect, fraternity, and love. Whether you are, from a different race, a different color, a different religion, or even if you not believe in anything.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So let's do the secret handshake.
Thank you.